Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out Diatone's limited edition GT-R369 SX. Previously on the channel I reviewed what Banggood call the Crazy Racing limited edition of the 369, which is confusing because Diatone don't call it that and you can still buy it, so it's not a limited edition version at all. But it did record the fastest ever speed of not just plug-and-fly 3-inch models, but all plug-and-fly models. In the first review, it recorded a top speed of 124 mph per hour using a 550 mAh GMB 6S LiPo, but then GMB released an 850 mAh 6S LiPo, and it went even faster with a top speed of 125 mph per hour. It's important to note that I did have to come up with my own tune because it came in an unflyable state, and I believe it went out to everyone like that initially, but more on that later. So what's the deal with this actual limited edition version? Well, first off, it seems like you can only buy it from Diatone directly, and they have only made 100 of them. Well, technically 99 because this is one of them. As I'm making this video, it actually works out a couple of dollars cheaper than the original, and they offer free shipping, at least to my country anyways. The first difference is the canopy. It's no longer translucent because they have done away with the LED strip to save on weight. I've got what they call the enchanting purple canopy fitted, but it also comes with a spare in a different colour called electroplating grey. You can buy these as a spare part, but again, only from Diatone, so I'll link to those in the below if you want to spruce up your original. It's difficult to tell at first, but the motors are completely different. They are the same spec as the original and have the Mamba brand, but the silver windings give it away. The original Mamba motors are made by 3BR, but these ones have been developed by Sunnysky, which is the same brand they worked with on Diatone's GTM series. As I mentioned, the stator specs are the same, but the bow isn't as wide because they have used less material to make them slightly lighter. The battery strap is a higher quality with a metal buckle rather than a plastic one, but they are still using this method of running the strap underneath the frame rather than between the gap in the stack. I went with it at first, but I really regret it, and you will see why later, because even though you are given these silicone strips, they aren't thicker than the battery strap, so run the battery strap through the stack and then use the silicone mats they provide. Otherwise, you won't have a fun day. The frame, props, antenna, camera and stack are all the same as the original, although they have changed the connector type for your receiver. Like most of Diatone's models, it's a plug-and-fly, and the original was designed to plug directly into an FrSky RXSR receiver, but this time it's come with a 4-pin female JST connector with a Mamba logo wrapped around it. I think this is to make it easier to add other receivers, as you are now given 2 other connectors. The one that I have installed is a male-to-male adapter, so it still plugs directly into an RXSR. I was hoping the white wire was wired up for S-port, but it's actually soldered up to the PPM pad on the flight controller, and the yellow is soldered to S-bus. But with this being an F7 flight controller, there's no need to worry about inverted and uninverted signals. So as long as your receiver runs off 5 volts, then you can pretty much use any receiver you like, which is why they give you this general male JST connector so you can solder to whichever system you are using. There's even a spare UART if you want to add crossfire, but you would have to take the stack apart and solder that up. Or you could just use S-bus instead of CRSF, but generally if you are running crossfire you'll want to run CRSF. The last change is the VTX. They are using the TBS Unify Pro Nano, which they have mounted onto a printed circuit board that has a switch. At first I thought the switch was for turning the VTX on and off, but I'm told it's because the VTX comes locked to 25 milliwatt out of the box. And if you have smart audio hooked up to the flight controller, then you can't unlock it. So the switch cuts off the UART connection. You can then go through the unlock procedure if you're allowed to do so. The Pro 32 Nano has a max power output of 400 milliwatts, so it's not quite as powerful as the full-sized Unify used in the original model. However, it's created a lot more space. I've mounted my receiver in the same place though. I suppose now the LEDs have gone, I could mount it underneath the canopy, but I keep it away from the VTX in general because they get hot. I'd say the Nano VTX has made the model much lighter, but with this added PCB it probably hasn't saved as much as it could have, with the Pro 32 Nano being just 1 gram on its own. Smart Audio isn't working anyways because they have shipped it with Betaflight version 3.55 because that's the version that I did my tune on. And the Pro 32 Nano uses Smart Audio 2.1, which wasn't supported until Betaflight 3.56. So what they should have done is flashed it with Betaflight 3.57 and then gone through my video and changed all of the settings, but they didn't do that. So the best thing to do if you buy this model is flash Betaflight 3.57 and then go through the Betaflight setup section of my video and copy the settings. My tune won't work on Betaflight 4 and I still can't get it to fly to an acceptable level on Betaflight 4. I think it's because the speed of this thing is just outside of what Betaflight 4 was designed for. I was surprised to see that they didn't copy the settings in my video and apply it to all of these models. Instead, when I initially reported back to them that the model wouldn't fly and I had to come up with a tune of my own for the 650 milliamp unbranded 6S test lipos that they sent me, as soon as I said I had a bass tune, they said, "Give me the CLI dump." And those are the settings that they have applied to this model. I think perhaps they were panicking when other reviewers like Stu from UAV Futures got the model, and he was going to put out a video saying don't buy it because it doesn't fly. But I took the tune further after I gave them the CLI. So I made 2 profiles, one for a 550 milliamp 6S LiPo and a second profile for a 650 to 850 milliamp 6S LiPo. And because I'm not sure what syntax has changed from Betaflight version 3.55 to 3.57, I'm saying follow the settings and values that I changed in my initial video rather than dumping the CLI from a different version of Betaflight. So I thought they had brought out this limited edition model to get it under 250 grams because I said in my video that in some countries it's really important because the limit is 250 grams or you have to register and jump through a bunch of hoops. But it's still just a little bit over 250 grams, including a battery. So its dry weight is 149 grams against the original's 156 grams. However, with a 550 milliamp 6S GMB LiPo, the model now only weighs 256 grams. So I think cutting off the XT60 connector and replacing it with an XT30 could be enough to get it down to 250 grams because as I learned in the first speed runs that I did, you don't need an XT60 connector on a 6S 3-inch model because it's drawing less current. In the previous videos of this model, I came up with a list of things that you could either remove or change to get it down to 250 grams, including a LiPo. But one thing I missed was using low-profile aluminium nuts on the motors, and a lot of you guys picked up on this in the comments, so thanks for that. And as these are full-size nuts, I think on this limited edition model, those two modifications, removing the connector and using the low profile motor nuts, could get it down to 250 grams, maybe even lighter. So my first interest was to see whether this model could exceed or at least match the non-limited edition version. So I strapped the 850 mAh 6S LiPo to it because that's the LiPo the first version went the quickest on. So let's see what its top speed is. Did you see that jolt it did as I opened the throttle? But importantly, it reached 125 mph, which is the speed that the first version did. And when I think about it, that's actually quite impressive given that these are a different brand of motor. Yeah, they're the same spec, but they're going to be a completely different build. And again, it's consistent. Look at that, 125 mph. So yeah, this got me thinking, is it the aerodynamics that is limiting it to 125 mph? I say limiting, but 125 mph is pretty quick, isn't it? One thing that I did notice is that I'm getting a little bit of jello, and I couldn't see that in the other two videos that I did of this model because I didn't have a sunny day. So with this being a CMOS camera, yeah, on full throttle, it should be no surprise actually that reaching these speeds that it's getting a little bit of jello, and I don't think there is any way around that. Funnily enough, it was pouring it down with rain about 2 hours before I did this flight, but that's just how it works in the UK. But yeah, it's not going faster, and I shouldn't be surprised by that either. You know, we're talking about 7 grams and 125 mph, so it's a technicality really to try and get it a little bit lighter, I would say. But one thing I did like is I'm getting less noise through the VTX than I did with the full Unify, so that is an improvement for sure. But other than that, it's not much different than the first version. So if you don't need to get it under 250 grams, then the first version isn't limited to 100 pieces, and it's available in more shops. Now, that jolt that it was doing at the start, it only ever did it the once, never again. And I think this is just Betaflight not knowing what to do with all of this power. But anyways, this flight ended in sadness because I tried to do a speed run in the opposite direction, and I think it got 118 mph, but it pitched backwards and I got a failsafe and it landed in a tree. And we spent, I think, around about 5 hours looking for it, and I never found it, and I was panicking at the time. So everything that you have seen in this video up until now has been when I actually eventually found it. So I looked at the DVR and I was going through every single frame. I actually found the battery, which was completely destroyed, because if you slow each frame down, then the model went into the tree backwards, but it was at the top of the tree, and its very last image that it took before it slung the battery, which is why I hinted earlier you need to sort out that battery strap situation, was it pointing at the sky at the top of a tree. And we stared at the tree for ages. You could see my spotter there. I think we had about 3 of us, and 4 including myself. And over a few days as well, because, you know, this is a limited edition model. I've got the first one, and I hadn't done where I run through all of the things that are different. So I actually had finished another video a few weeks later, and I just had to go out for a little walk to clear my head. I do this sometimes. I didn't take my phone. I didn't take any video equipment, and I just stared at the tree for, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, and all of a sudden I could just see some orange, and I thought, oh, that could probably just be the leaves, you know, because it's starting to become autumn here. But I looked again and I could see it, so I sort of climbed the tree a little bit, and I was like, that's it, that's actually it. So myself and my dad, we got some ladders and we got it out of the tree. So all of the stuff that you saw on the bed, it had actually been in a tree where we've had torrential rain pretty much day and night for 2 weeks. But it seems like the leaves must have somehow shielded it from the rain, because it is in pristine condition. So I'm really glad that I managed to get it back and for you to watch this video. It's just a shame that I didn't film the rescue effort. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll put a link in the description of this video if you wish to buy one of these limited edition versions, as well as the non-limited edition version, because in reality, unless it's weight that you are trying to reduce, they perform pretty similar. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.